2 of L'anse Aux Meadows and St. Anthony. Let's get started with a little storytelling.
Well, welcome to the home, and like my friend here say, you are supposed to bring gifts. So, you know, I'm starting to see that this generation is a little bit neglected. At least people out in the world is a little bit neglected, right? I mean, apparently you don't know that, so. But anyway, we'll just keep one of you to kind of even things out, and I think that'll work out pretty well okay. Lost at sea, some get blown off course, a few fellas have to turn around. A few people end up over in Ireland. It's quite the navigation area, you can imagine, right? But one of the ships that's blown off course is captained by a man named Bjarne Hirolfsson. And we're told when he eventually makes his way back to Greenland, he starts talking to Eric the Red and the other colonists about bits of land he saw far out to the west while he was lost. And he described a land of flat stones, wide sandy beaches, and lots of trees. Now the tree bit really intrigues Eric a bit, of course, because there's no timber in Greenland, and you're going to need that to build things. Of course, build boats and houses and heat homes and all that fun stuff. And so he's going to set out an expedition to go find this bit of timber. Only he falls off his horse and breaks his leg. And he takes that as an ill omen. So he turns to his son, Leif Erikson, and says, "You must go and explore this new land." He's clearly not meant to. This is where I shall stay. I shall discover no new lands, and this is where I shall die to, here in Greenland, basically. And his son says to him, "Well, you know, father, a man with luck such as you would be very valuable on this voyage." And he says to him, no, it's your voyage to do, and that's that. And he sends him off. And so Leif sets out then, and he does Bjarne's route backwards, more or less. He comes across a bit of land first that you folks would call Baffin Island, and he names that Helluland, which is the land of flat, useless stones. No rated up there, right, or anything like that. So he sails a little bit further again, and he comes down to a heavily forested land, which you folks would call Labrador, and he names that Markland, the land of forest. It's not a real creative name, you can imagine now. You know, tree land over there, rockland over there, good stuff. And so he sails on a little bit further, and he comes down to this area, which he then calls Vinland, or Vinland the Good, which is the land of wine. A little bit of false representation there, I think, going on. But he described this land as being extremely rich and temperate, and that the ground had dew on it that tasted sweeter than anything you've ever had. I fell for that one too, myself. And so he named there Vinland. And he spent about constructed this home that we're in here today. This is Leif's camp. And after the end of those 2 or 3 years, he sailed back to Greenland, taking back much timber and grapes and pelts and all that with him. And when he arrived in Greenland, great fame and fortune was heaped upon him. And it was at one feast and celebration of his journey to Vinland that his brother, who was named Thorstein, got a little bit uppity, basically. He was hearing all this heap and praise that was going on to Leif here, and he was getting real jealous. Younger siblings, right? Getting jealous of the older ones. And so he says to Leif, "That was nothing what you did, brother. I'm going to sail even farther than you did. I'm going to stay even longer than you did. Oh, Vinland, you're only over there for 2 or 3 years. That's nothing. I'm going to do much better than that." "Well, fine, then take my boat and have at her." And so he does. He packs up the boat, Thorstein does, with 30 strong men, and so they set sail over to Vinland. And they come down here to Leif's camp, same as we're here now. He stays here very briefly, though. He sets off sail further south. And he's a little bit further south of here when he comes across a number of men sleeping beneath skin boats. And they're awful scraggly looking. Their hair's not combed and the like, and so he gives them the name Skraeling, which is the scraggy people. And think these men beneath the skin boats, and he captures 8 of them, and he orders them killed. And unfortunately, one fella gets out of his bindings, and he scrabbles up over the rocks and gets away. They chase him for a little bit, but they can't catch him. And so at this point, they decide to set up camp on this spot here, which might be a bit short-sighted, you might think, but we'll get to that now in a minute. It's not too much longer later on the horizon, they see a large number of these skin boats coming, and an awful lot of Skraelings coming. And they've got bows and arrows in their hand, and they start firing a whole storm of arrows over at them. His men are raised up your shields, shield wall and all that, defend yourselves, protect heavily, attack lightly, that sort of thing. And the storm goes on for quite some time. Eventually it does end, it subsists, and the Skraelings disappear onto the horizon once more, and Thorstein looks around at all his men, and he cries out, "Is everyone okay?" And most of them reply, "Yeah, we're fine, it's all good," only for Thorstein to then say, "Well, I'm not okay," because an arrow actually came up under one of the shields and struck him just below the ribs there. And so in Vinland, they bury him in a spot that he called Cross Nest, or Keel's Nest, and he thought that would have been a lovely spot to build a house. So they bury him there, and they sail back home towards Greenland. And when they get to Greenland, and they tell word of what happened to poor old Thorstein there, The younger brother of he and Leif, Thorvald, comes on the scene, and he's none too happy about that because he's a good Christian man. And he finds out now his good Christian brother has been buried over all the way in Vinland in unchristian soil, unconsecrated ground. So he's not real happy about that. And so he gathers up 30 strong men, and he sets sail to go recover his brother's body. A sibling who is named Freydis Eriksdottir, she comes on the scene. And she thinks, well, Leif, you know, I'd like to have a bit of that Vinland action myself. I mean, you got an awful lot of riches and fame and all that out of it. Now, sure, everybody else after you's had a bit of a rough time, but I'm going to give that a go too myself. And he consents to that and says, you can use my house when you get down there. And it's around this time that some more Icelandic merchants show up in Greenland, and she teams up with them. So they're going to have a joint expedition over here now, her and these two Icelandic merchants. And so they set sail over to here. But now Freydis pulls a bit of a dirty trick. You see, the Icelanders, they agree to take 40 men, and Freydis will agree as well to take 40 men in her ship. But now when the Icelanders leave, she actually sneaks some extra people aboard, so she's got 45 in her ship. This is an important detail for later now. Make note of this number, right? This is on the quiz. And so they sail over here. The Icelanders get here first, and they set up shack in Leifsfjordur in the houses there. And when Freydis arrives, she's not happy about this. So she barges into the house and starts cursing the Icelanders and drives them out, basically. You know, these are my brother's houses. They're for me to use, not you lot. Be gone with you. And they retreat from it because they don't want to fight with her, basically. And so she gets an awful, awful idea in her head. She gets up out of bed. She doesn't put her shoes on, and she walks out over the cold, wet ground in her bare feet. And she comes into the home of the Icelanders. And she says to them, I've had enough of this Vinland stuff. I would like to go back home. But you have the bigger of our two ships, so I would like to take your ship and you take mine. I'll fill it up with cargo and I'll go back home, and you can stay here if you want. And the Icelanders at first are a little bit reluctant to do this because you've got the bigger ship. It's more money for you, right? But they also are ready to be rid of Freydis. I mean, she's been nothing but nasty to them the whole time, right? So if she's going to be gone, oof, that's perfect. Sigh of relief, basically. And so eventually they consent to it. They say, agree, you can have our ship, and that'll be that. With this, she leaves the house, again walking over the cold, wet ground with her bare feet, and she climbs into bed with her husband. And I don't remember his name. What's her husband's name?
Good question. What is it?
Anyway, you're supposed to be my Atlas here now.
Let's call him
Prince Thorkel he is now. Alright, so Thorkel. Right, so we're going to pretend I never did know that. But anyway, she climbs into bed with Thorkel, and she takes her cold, wet feet. She drives them right into his back. Now, husband's here. I'm sure you can relate to that feeling, of course, right? You know, it's not real pleasant. And he wakes with a startle, Thorkel does. You know, oh, jeez, Freydis, what's going on? Why is your feet so cold? Why are you up so early? That sort of thing. And she says to him, I was over talking to those Icelanders, and they beat me, and they cursed me, and they said, oh, so nasty, terrible things to me, and if you had any sense of honor, you'd get out of bed here right now, and you'd go and avenge me. Real mild manner, real meek fellow, and he says, well, you know, I don't really want to get into confrontations with these people now. I mean, they've been pretty nice to us, all things considered. And so she says to him, I think you're a coward. I ought to divorce you. Now, in our society, our Norse society, I don't know if it's the same in yours, but divorce is 50-50. So, you know, Thorkel's ears perk up with that. You know, geez, I don't want that. And so he rallies up his men, and they head over to the home of the Icelanders, and they take them by surprise. They drag them all out in bindings and the like, and execute them all. They drag them out to the beach and sight, and most of them is a little bit kind of grossed out, disgusted by what they've done. But it doesn't stop there, because Freydis looks towards the buildings. And in one of the houses, she sees little feet running back and forth, real scared like. She turns to Thorkel and says, you're not finished yet. There's still people in that building. And Thorkel turns to her and says, well, you know, those are women and children, Freydis. They would never hurt you in the way that you describe. You know, they're not in the habit of harming innocents and the like, right? Without skipping a beat, bring me the axe. Take two. Bring me the axe. That's much better, right? Much more dramatic. And so she stalks into the house with axe in hand, and she chases down the women and the children, and she gets them like that. She hacks them down, right? You know, one by one. And she comes back out of the buildings then, blood still dripping from the axe. She looks over to the crew, and she says to them, if any of you should tell what happened here today, you shall share the same fate. And with that, she cover up her crime. And they gather up both of the ships, they fill them with cargo, and they sail back home towards Greenland. And when they arrive, Leif comes down to greet them, and he asks Freydis where the Iceland is. You know, there are 2 of you set out, and there's only 1 of you here. What's going on? To which she replies, "Oh, they decided to stay for another year. We'll come pick them up on the outside." And he's satisfied with that for now. Long after, and men are swapping stories by the fire, just like we're doing here now. Although there's not a lot of swapping going on here. It's pretty mutual, or pretty what's the word I'm looking for? One-sided. There you go. Perfect. You get the gold star for that one. But anyway, they're swapping stories around, right? And of course, one fella wants to do the other, and so it's getting more and more gritty and more intense, the stories. And eventually one fella who's deep in his cups, real drunk, he comes out and says, "I got a real doozy for you, make your blood run cold." And so the story gets out of what happened over there in Finland. And when Leif finds out, he's not real happy. He has Freydis stripped of all her wealth and possessions, and she's banished out to live on an old, scary, old desolate rock just off the coast of Greenland.
And that'll give you an idea of some of the storytellings that happened with the Sagas and Shadows show. We stayed there for about 45 minutes to an hour. We got to sample some Partridgeberry Jam on some traditional biscuits and a little bit of Partridgeberry Drink, and it was sort of fun. So hope you get a chance to do it sometime. The next day we ventured on to the second location that they have set up with replicas of underground homes, boat building, and the such. And here it is. We're going to share it with you now. Going into the shipbuilders area. What a great stop this was. We got to see the different tools, we got to see the big oar, the rudder, the sails that were being made. We got to, actually there was a gentleman here telling us the story of the history of the boat and all the different details about it. It was really good. So if you get a chance, make sure you stop by the boat builders. It's a must-see. Here's the second site in L'anse Aux Meadows that you can come and visit. For some of the replicas, they have some people here acting out the era. And we're going to go underground here too and check out their sod houses. There's a church.
So I think
right
Norstead called this one.
Yeah. There you go. Here's where they had an outdoor cooking area set up. And then a little photo of Craig and I. It's a blacksmith shop.
I seen one, he just came out here. We missed him.
There's a replica of a coal cellar. They keep some of their goods preserved. We're going to go into the church.
Bearing gifts. You for that's the collection.
We're gonna head over now to the homes underground. There we go. Inside.
This is the new Amazon.
See, online shopping.
This is our online shopping right there. And you're making the wool. It's attached.
We're gonna have to get some sheep, baby.
Yeah.
All you need is a couple sheep and a job spinner.
Wanna go fishing the fish? Spinning our roll? Then you're gonna be making hats and stuff for
That's
us?
right, yeah, I'm knitting a hat.
The first lady was showing us how to make the wool. The second lady showed us how to knit with the wool. And then they also shared with us a few other items.
Cloaks, even the first sails for the Snorri ship was done on the loom.
For sale too, yeah.
Yeah, sewn together in panels and dipped in some type of whale or seal oil to make it.
Here's another example of a rug in the middle of being made on the loom. And then we went into the next room where they were busy making Toutans.
The candle holders.
I didn't realize what I was like.
They're making bread. They're beating.
Yeah.
And Toutans.
Now we get that burned up.
Are we allowed to sit in the chair?
Sure can.
Oh yeah, this chieftain's chair. You can sure be chieftain for a while if you want to. Helmet, sword, and everything is there.
Pretty cozy in there, right?
Just making Toutans over an open fire.
Looks like I get this fur for the truck. Messy as we are, or I am.
You are, yeah. Look delicious. They showed us how to make Toutans, and then we got to sample them. Man, yummy. Traditional Partridgeberry Jam and a few other choices, and then some other things that were on display as well. We had such a great time touring around their house. It was so surreal, I guess you would say, looking at all the ways that they would have lived back then. And they let us play with their swords and put their helmets on, pretend we were chieftain and all the rest of it, and it was a great time. There's so much history in this place. I really highly recommend that you come and check it out for yourself. This video can really only touch on a small portion of it, and there's so much more to see. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button, like, and share with your friends. Until next time, keep living life one adventure at a time.